1 million downloads per week. That's how big Astro has become, and Cloudflare just bought the company behind it.
Wait, Cloudflare bought a web framework? I thought they were a CDN and security company. Why do they need a JavaScript framework?
Because they're not just a CDN anymore. They're building a complete developer platform, and they just acquired the best content-first framework on the market to do it.
Welcome to the Platform Engineering Playbook Daily Podcast. Today's news and a deep dive to help you stay ahead in platform engineering.
Today, we're diving into Cloudflare's acquisition of the Astro technology company and what it means for platform engineers making framework decisions.
But first, let's cover today's top headlines.
AWS just flipped the switch on their European sovereign cloud. This is significant. It's the first time AWS has built completely isolated infrastructure within the EU.
Wait, I thought they already had EU regions. What's different about this?
Everything. This isn't just data residency. We're talking EU-only staff, EU-only hardware, EU-only operations. No American employees can access this infrastructure. It's their answer to the Cloud Act concerns that have been plaguing European enterprises for years.
That's huge for regulated industries. Banks, healthcare, government, they've been struggling with data sovereignty requirements.
Exactly. And it puts pressure on Azure and GCP to offer similar isolation. For platform teams, this means your multi-cloud architecture decisions just got more complex. You might need EU sovereign workloads running completely separate from your global infrastructure.
What's next?
Let's Encrypt just made 6-day certificates generally available. That's right, 160 hours instead of 90 days.
6 days? That seems like a lot of certificate churn. What's the benefit?
Security exposure window. If a certificate gets compromised, the damage is limited to 6 days instead of 3 months. That's a 15x reduction in vulnerability exposure. They're also now supporting IP address certificates for environments that don't have domains.
That's interesting for internal services. A lot of teams have services that only communicate via IP addresses.
Exactly. But this also means your certificate automation pipeline needs to be bulletproof. If renewal fails, you've got 6 days before things break, not 3 months.
Good point. Your cert manager configs better be solid.
Datadog released some interesting tooling around LLM observability. They're calling it the widget agent and dashboard agent.
So natural language to dashboards?
Yes, but more importantly, they're showing how to monitor the reliability of those AI agents in production, tracing agent decision-making, tool calls, the full chain. As more platform teams deploy agentic systems, this becomes critical.
Makes sense. You can't treat an AI agent like a regular API endpoint. The failure modes are completely different.
And finally, there's a new interactive eBPF netting platform that showed up on Hacker News, eBPF.party. It's hands-on exercises using modern Co-re and BTF approaches.
Nice. eBPF skills are becoming essential for platform engineers. Networking, security, observability, it all flows through eBPF these days.
For software updates, Pulumi 3.216.0 dropped with OIDC token improvements and better dynamic provider support. The CLI now defaults to Pulumi Cloud when using OIDC, which streamlines cloud integration.
That covers the headlines. Now let's get into the main story.
So here's what happened. Cloudflare announced they're acquiring the Astro technology company. The entire Astro team is becoming Cloudflare employees. But here's the interesting part. The framework itself stays MIT licensed.
So they're buying the team, not the code?
Effectively, yes. Astro remains open source. Anyone can fork it, deploy it anywhere, but the people who built it and maintain it, they now work for Cloudflare.
That's a fascinating structure. Why would Cloudflare want a web framework, though?
Let me give you some context first. For listeners who haven't used Astro, it's a content-driven web framework that launched in 2022. The core innovation is something called islands architecture.
I've heard that term. What does it actually mean?
Traditional frameworks like Next.js or Nuxt ship JavaScript for your entire page, even if most of it is static content. Astro flips that. By default, it renders everything as static HTML. You only ship JavaScript for the specific components that need interactivity.
So if I have a marketing page with one interactive widget, I'm not loading a React runtime for the whole page.
Exactly. The page loads as pure HTML, then just that one widget hydrates with JavaScript. They call each interactive component an island, hence islands architecture.
That's clever. What kind of performance gains are we talking?
Users regularly report hitting 100 out of 100 on all Lighthouse metrics. The framework makes it almost hard to build a slow site. That's why companies like Porsche, NASA, and The Guardian are using it.
That's a strong user list. How big is the ecosystem?
1 million weekly NPM downloads. That's not Nuxt or Next.js numbers, but it's substantial and growing fast.
What about the developer experience? React developers won't switch just for performance.
Here's where it gets interesting. Astro is framework agnostic. You can use React, Vue, Svelte, Solid, even mix them in the same project. The components just become those islands I mentioned.
Wait, I can have a React component and a Vue component on the same page?
Yes. Each component brings only its own runtime. So if you have teams with different framework preferences or you're migrating between frameworks, Astro handles it.
That flexibility is valuable for platform teams managing multiple front-end applications.
And the mental model is simple. You write components, but Astro treats them as server-rendered by default. If you need interactivity, you explicitly mark it. It inverts the usual JavaScript-first assumption.
Okay, I get why developers like Astro. But back to the acquisition. Why does Cloudflare want this?
3 strategic reasons. First, developer ecosystem capture. Cloudflare Pages is their static hosting and edge function platform. It competes with Vercel and Netlify. But Vercel has Next.js, which they basically control. Netlify acquired Gatsby. Cloudflare was the odd one out.
So now they have a framework to call their own?
Exactly. When 1 million developers are already using Astro and Cloudflare can offer first-class integration, those developers become a massive funnel for Cloudflare's other services.
That makes business sense. What's reason 2?
Technical alignment. Astro's server-first architecture maps perfectly to Cloudflare workers. Edge functions work best with minimal JavaScript and server rendering. That's exactly what Astro does.
So it's not just marketing synergy. The framework actually runs better on their platform.
Right, and they're not starting from zero. Cloudflare already uses Astro for their own documentation and landing pages. This isn't an acquisition for acquisition's sake. They've been running Astro in production.
What's the third reason?
The Workerd connection. Cloudflare open-sourced their Workers runtime last year. It's called Workerd. This lets developers run the same environment locally that they deploy to the edge. With Astro integration, you get seamless local development to production edge deployment.
That's a compelling developer story. Code locally, deploy globally, same runtime everywhere.
Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, open source sustainability.
You mean the pattern where frameworks get acquired and then slowly neglected?
Exactly. The Astro team was refreshingly honest in their announcement. They said, and I'm paraphrasing, that they weren't able to monetize the framework.
That's a bold admission. Most acquisitions spin some story about acceleration or synergy.
Right? They basically said, we built something developers love, couldn't figure out how to make money from it, and chose acquisition over shutting down or pivoting. That honesty is rare.
But it also highlights a real problem. How do open source frameworks survive?
The common pattern is get VC funding, build the framework, try to monetize with hosting or enterprise features, and when that doesn't work out, hope for an acquisition.
We've seen this play out before. Gatsby got acquired by Netlify, and users have been complaining about subsequent neglect.
Remix went to Shopify. Create React app is basically maintained by volunteers now since Facebook stepped back.
So what makes the Cloudflare Astro deal different, if anything?
A few things. First, the MIT license is explicitly maintained. Anyone can fork and continue development if Cloudflare neglects it. Second, Cloudflare genuinely uses Astro for their own properties. They have skin in the game beyond acquisition.
But couldn't optimization bias creep in, where features work great on Cloudflare but are second-class elsewhere?
That's a legitimate concern, and the community is already talking about it. On Hacker News, developers are drawing comparisons to Next.js and Vercel, where the framework runs anywhere in theory, but clearly works best on Vercel.
So platform teams need to think about this carefully.
Let's break down what actually changes for platform teams. If you're already using Astro, nothing changes immediately. The framework stays open source, your deployments to Netlify or Vercel or your own servers keep working.
But long-term?
Watch for Cloudflare-optimized features that become proprietary. The question is, will non-Cloudflare deployments become second-class citizens over time?
What about teams choosing a framework right now?
Astro's strengths remain real. Performance, content sites, documentation, it's excellent for these use cases. But you should stress-test multi-platform deployment. Can you deploy to AWS, Vercel, and self-hosted with the same codebase? If that portability matters to you, verify it.
What about the technical considerations?
A few things. Server adapters. Astro supports different deployment targets through adapters. Keep an eye on whether the Cloudflare adapter gets preferential treatment.
What about AstroDB?
Good question. Astro has this database abstraction built in. With Cloudflare owning the company, expect deep D1 integration. That's Cloudflare's serverless SQL database. The question is, does AstroDB lock you into Cloudflare's data layer?
These are the kinds of questions platform teams should be documenting.
Exactly. Your technology evaluation process should include who funds this project, what's their business model, what happens if ownership changes.
Let me push back a bit. Isn't corporate backing actually good for open source sustainability?
It can be. A framework with dedicated paid developers will get more consistent updates than one maintained by volunteers in their spare time. But the trade-off is control.
And optimization bias, like you mentioned.
Right. The best case is a framework backed by a company that genuinely needs it to work well everywhere. The worst case is a framework that becomes a funnel for a specific platform services.
Where does Astro fall?
Too early to tell definitively. The positive signs, MIT license, Cloudflare's track record with open source, genuine technical alignment. The warning signs, historical patterns of acquisition leading to platform lock-in, the explicit admission that monetization was the problem.
So cautious optimism?
I'd say cautious evaluation. If you're heavily invested in multi-cloud or need long-term vendor neutrality, document your exit strategy now. If you're already on Cloudflare or open to it, this acquisition probably makes Astro more attractive, not less.
What about the broader implications for platform engineering?
A few takeaways. First, Cloudflare is serious about being a full developer platform. This isn't just CDN plus security anymore. They want the full stack from framework to edge to data.
That's a different competitive landscape.
Second, the VC to acquisition pipeline for open source is the norm now, not the exception. When you adopt an open source framework, you're implicitly betting on its funding model.
So due diligence on funding should be part of technology evaluation.
Third, portability claims will be tested. Astro says it runs anywhere. Cloudflare says they'll keep it open. The community will be watching closely to see if reality matches rhetoric.
What would you tell a platform engineering team evaluating frameworks today?
3 things. 1. Look at funding. Who pays for development? What's their exit strategy? 2. Test portability yourself. Don't trust marketing. Deploy to multiple targets and see what breaks. 3. Document your decision. Write down why you chose this framework and what would trigger a reevaluation.
That third point is underrated. Technical decisions get made and then forgotten.
Exactly. 2 years from now, someone will ask, why are we using this framework? And nobody will remember. Document the context, the alternatives considered, and the conditions that would change your mind.
Speaking of documentation, should teams considering Astro wait to see how the acquisition plays out?
That depends on your timeline. If you're starting a content site or documentation project today, Astro is still excellent for that use case. The acquisition doesn't change its technical merits.
But if you're choosing a framework for a strategic, long-term platform,
Then yeah, a few months of observation might be wise. See how Cloudflare handles the transition. See whether non-Cloudflare deployment stories remain first class.
fair enough. Any final thoughts?
Just this. Acquisitions aren't inherently good or bad for open source. They're a reality of how software gets funded. The question is always, does the acquiring company's incentives align with the community's needs? For Cloudflare and Astro, the answer is probably mostly. But probably mostly isn't certainty.
Trust but verify.
Trust but verify. And always have an exit plan. That's our show for today.
If you found this valuable, please subscribe and share with a friend who'd appreciate it.
Drop us a comment with your thoughts on today's topic.
Links to everything we discussed are in the show notes.
Until next time.